Okay, good.
So you will be on there at first.
Great. Maybe I can edit that out. Now.
And now you can just put it on a stand wherever you want to.
Okay, I'm gonna try that. Good morning. We are getting ready to live stream our program, our Thriving Church. Look, we've got the Yates coming in this morning, Belinda and Eddie. We've got Chase Haynes and Shannon. Good morning, Fritz.
Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Dr. Rich. We've got, let's see, Jerry and Mike in the back. And here's Mike Price and Walter. And there's Kevin. Okay. All right. Hey, Chase, can you come here a minute? Okay. I am live streaming to a private link thing. If I turn it, is it gonna? No, it will not turn, really. No, it won't. Okay. This is my. Can you help me get this thing in here? Like, get that up and get it on. Almost. Wait, let me, I gotta wipe my. Now that's better. Good morning, Kathy and DJ.
Nice, how are you?
Okay. Sorry.
Your booklet is fantastic.
Do we need? Oh yes.
I'll give it about 5 minutes.
What time is it?
Till after.
Okay.
Till about 9:05 to start.
And we'll, okay. Oh, what do you do? You hold it.
That's what I do when I feel strong. Thank you.
No, okay, wait a minute. Hold call up.
I know, I'm the same. What's it gonna do today?
Being here, they're probably not much choice.
Oh, good.
We were coming at some point today. How are y'all working with brown bag, sandwiches, chips, and
I knew it would be dry this morning, but, I don't know where, and I stayed one day, and I had to. Where's your name?
I'll start kind of walking around.
There's time.
Coffee's ready, if anybody wants a cup of coffee.
oh, hey, I thought I bought a big cup. You'll need
Hi. Good morning. You got it.
All right, now. We got to do it. We got to put it. We got to rotate it the other way, right?
Yeah.
Ah, this way, right?
Yeah.
And
And I'll let you hold
okay.
the camera. Whoa. Sorry, you gotta balance. It might not be big enough.
Yeah, okay.
leadership capacity. I feel like churches are, one of our jobs as churches is to help each one of you discover what your leadership capacity, what your gifts and talents and abilities are. To help you find your own voice, and then finding your collective voice as a congregation. And then of course you get to learn from somebody like me. So we've done the training. This is our first weekend gathering, and we call this one State of the Church and State of the Church Small C and State of the Church Big C. Our conversation today is about the state of your congregation, and we'll talk about what's in your booklet here. But then I will talk to y'all about the state of the church, big picture, in the present moment, and we can think about how that impacts the mission of First Reformed. The next we have the Community Leaders Forum with our team, and then the second gathering we're going to talk about what we learned through that meeting, and basically the idea there is what a faithful and flourishing congregation will look like in the next 3 years. So it's like very focused, laser focused on a particular period, on the immediate. And then the third gathering, we sort of present our summation of the process, and we give you guys essentially a report of what's been learned and what the vision is to go forward. At the end of that, we ask everybody who's there to make commitments aligned with the process that the team has developed. And so I want you to, this is important to understand, this is not me coming in and telling you how to fix your church. I have no idea. I don't even know that your church needs fixing. I'm here because y'all asked me to come here, and it's not me who's going to be able to tell you how to do it. It's your team that you have chosen who's going to do it, and I'm just there to facilitate and guide with some expertise and some knowledge. Does that make sense? It's very much the idea is that this is congregation driven. It's not, somebody from the outside coming in, because that never works. It just never works. So we're going to come now. Well, before I do that, let me just ask, are there any questions on any of that? Well,
Can they hear? Can everybody hear?
what's that?
Can everybody hear?
Can everybody hear? Good.
Okay.
We're going to come now to talking about the state of the church, small c, the state of First Reformed. And Kevin is going to walk us through some statistics here.
All right, thanks, Chris. Can you hear me all right? Well, we're not here today to figure out exactly where we're going or how we get there. Today is about figuring out where we are right now and where we stand. You need a map before you can figure out how you're going to get where you're going. You got to figure out where you are on that map. And so that's what this is about. On page 15 in your book, you'll see the membership number, and you don't need me to point them out to you, but I would like you to notice there between 2016 and 2017, that drop off was due to a cleanup of the roll, and what you might want to call a purge. And then you can see after that, the membership numbers have been steady. And during this period of steady membership, the missions have actually grown. So the current membership is doing a good job with what we have to work with. They've shown commitment. And also, the giving has been steady during this whole time. And that includes the COVID. And actually, the giving has increased per capita has been steady. So, there has not been a drop off in giving or membership. And if you look at attendance, I believe that's on page 18. The big factor you'll see is the COVID drop off in 2020. I don't have to belabor that, we're all aware of that. And the numbers were cut almost in half. But since then, the numbers have been steady. And you might note that seems to be the core membership. We see, as I look out here, I see the same faces that I see on Sunday morning. That's not a surprise, is it? Also like to note that there are online views. That's on page 19. And that, of course, started after the COVID thing, and it's a very important part. We know of people that have sampled First Reformed by looking at us online. And these days, you know, when we all joined church, we probably visited 2 or 3 churches and tried to decide which best fit up. It's not uncommon for people today. They go online and they see what they can find. And it does work that way. It's a strength of this church to have that online presence. I have never used it, and maybe a lot of you haven't either, but there are plenty of people who do. So the main thing to take away is that the core membership and our attendance is strong. And it's reflected in the numbers, and it's reflected in the giving. And as we look at giving, I want you to go back to page 5 on page 6. And as you can see, the budget has remained just about the same for the last 10 years. And we have been close to making the budget. And of course, there's an ongoing gap between the budget and the other. That dates back to, as you can see here, 2014. Remarkable is the COVID year when everything stayed just about the same, even increased after that, both in the giving and the budget. However, we know that it's not really sustainable to have a budget and come up short every year. That doesn't work well. The government can do it, but churches and most households can't do that. So that's a question we're going to have to look at going forward. We don't want to make a church all about numbers, of course. It's not just about membership, and it's not just about attendance, and it's not just about the budget. But those things reflect what's going on. Those numbers do matter, even if they're not the only thing that's important. Let's see. I believe that's about it, Rick. What do you think? Have I got anything else?
I just have a couple comments on what he said, but otherwise, yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Kevin. Good job.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a couple of things I wanted to say about what he brought up. One of the things that is very striking when you look at your numbers is you've got, and this is not uncommon in churches. As I say, we're talking about, your trends are not just your trends. They are reflective of national trends. But what's happened is, over time, your budget has stayed more or less the same, or even risen just a tad, but the number of givers seems to have dropped. So what that means is those of you who are giving more. And that is A, fantastic, thank you. That's wonderful. It shows how much you love and care for the church. And B, very difficult to sustain. And so that's something to think about as you go forward. The other thing to think about is you've been dependent on outside sources to supplement your budget for the last few years. And there are various sources at various times. But in the last couple of years, there have been increasingly large amounts coming from the trust. And at this point, I'm going to introduce Walter. And Walter, you can tell us a little bit about what's going on with this.
And we'll be starting on page 9 in your booklet. I love this book. Thank you, Chase, for putting that together for us. And I thank each of you for being here, because I know all of you have other opportunities on Saturday, but this is important that you're here today. I get to talk about good news. This was not all good news, but we now have good news in talking about the funds that are held by the trustees. And just in case you don't know, those are funds that are donated as permanent funds to the church. Maybe when someone passes away in their will, they're going to leave $50,000 to the church for this purpose. And generally, we're not allowed to spend the principal that they give us, but we can spend the earnings that come off of that. And they may have other restrictions, and it may be for a very specific purpose, or it may be for a general purpose. But that's basically what we're talking about when people give money to the church that way. And we've got over 30 different funds that we hold. So we've tried to categorize some of those and aggregate some of that for you today. If you have questions as we go along, feel free to, this isn't something that I know we talk a whole lot about, so feel free to interrupt if we need to ask questions about that. So let's start with our first slide here that just talks about the total figures over the last 10 years. And so we've had a lot of graphs that sort of go down this way. The great thing about this one is it pretty consistently goes up every time. And you'll notice that from 2014 to 2024, we more than doubled the total amount of funds invested. So that's really good news during the time when the attendance and whatnot have been declining. Now, I do want to, it's not all smooth sailing up and down. You'll notice that from 2021 to 2022, we dropped down about $500,000. So it can be volatile, just as the markets are volatile. So it's not always a straight ride up. But I'm glad Jerry Smith could be here today. And Jerry, I want to give you a whole lot of credit for this. He's been Papa trustee for a long time. He knows this stuff in and out. And this is a whole lot because of Jerry's hard work and some other trustees through these years. So Jerry, appreciate what you've done for us. It's really paid off from that standpoint. So what does this really tell us? All this really tells us is that we've got now $3.7 million that we take care of that is producing earnings for our portfolio. Doesn't mean we have $3.7 million we can spend. We do not, because we can't touch most of that. But that doesn't mean we've got a lot more generating at this point. So let's flip over to 10, if you would, and we'll get into how that money has been used over the last 10 years. And this was handed out in church a couple of months back in a different format, but the numbers are basically the same. And if you look to the middle column there, you'll see mostly what are our capital and property expenses, which is our primary function, is to have adequate reserves to pay for the capital needs of the church. And you see we've had about $500,000 go into various things for that. The other big item is we have started to put more money into the general fund. That's basically your column on the left. Totals up to about 200,000 for that. And as we mentioned, it's kind of been an increasing amount. But then if you look over to the right-hand column, that's just for this year. And we already know of over $200,000 that will have to be invested this year. And a lot of it has been on that roof that we just had to put on. So we're glad to have that done. And it's good that we have the funds to do this. That's been a very beneficial thing. But from a budgetary standpoint that we alluded to earlier, the trustees have been kicking in about $10,000 a year into the general fund for a long time. And then that needed to go to 20 a few years back. Last year it actually went up to 40. We were doing 10,000 a quarter, adding that to the general budget. But when they were doing projections for the year that we're in now, they actually were projecting a shortfall overall of $120,000. So you can see that gap has just been climbing. And what was committed to for this current year is that the trustees would go to $20,000 a quarter, or $80,000 for the year, and the consistory would do the additional 40, so 2/3, 1/3 investment on that. But just be aware that that gap has started exponentially getting bigger with that. So let's take a look at page 11. Any questions yet on any of this? Okay. Page 11 is an important page because it tells you what amount of these funds are spendable. Not that total that we looked at, but what's actually spendable. And interesting things that we can look at. At the bottom of that first chart, the numbers, you actually see there is a consistory discretionary fund. And that means exactly what it says. Those are consistory funds. The trustees invest those monies, but they're owned by the consistory basically. So they can use that as they wish. They started out when we sold the bank building next door. And those funds have been invested and have grown quite a bit. But trustees do not control any of that money. That's consistory money to use as they see fit without any approval from us. So they've got some flexibility with that. And you'll see that we've grouped in some various things. We've got some funds that go for scholarships. A good number go for building and property upkeep. And that looks like a large amount, $340,000. But when we are spending chunks, hundreds of thousands at a time, it's not as big as it looks. I am so thankful, and I hope you are thankful too, that we have these funds. And we stand on the shoulders of some generous people that went before us decades ago. And we're really benefiting from that now. But those are big ticket items usually that we use, and Eddie keeps finding new ways for us to spend it. So we'll have to keep doing that. And we do have, this is a beneficial number here, we've got a large number of unrestricted funds. But bear in mind also a couple of things. When we overspend or have to spend more than we have for property upkeep, something big comes along, then we have to go into our unrestricted to fill that gap from there. We also have to allow for sometimes large market fluctuation. As you know, we've had some years where the market was down 30%, and ours will mimic that also. But we do have some funds. So I'm trying to give you a balanced message here that the good news is we have some funds and we're generating more. But we can't go have a party and try to spend $3 million. That's not going to work. We have to balance the assets that we do have and the needs that we have. We have funds for other interesting things. We've got $13,000 available today to spend on patriotic music. That was a gift given very specifically. And what we may have to try to do there is, I don't really know how we're going to do that. that one may have to go back. That's generating more money each year, but that may be an opportunity to go back to that family and see if maybe we can redirect some of that for another use. But anyway, you get into some interesting things, and you see we have some funds to help out with maintaining our organ It's very expensive, nice organs, we wanna do that. Let's see if there's anything else I should highlight. I believe that's all I'll highlight from that. But if you go to the column right beside of that, where it talks about, the Theodore and Jacqueline Leonard Trust account, that was a trust set up by that family, and you see the balance is 1.7 million. That's in addition to the monies we've been talking about, because our trustees do not manage this. It's held in trust, and it's managed by another party. We get the benefit from that each year. Those funds come to us, and they've helped us grow our other funds. That's done well. Just be aware that if the church ever goes away, those are not our monies. Those go to something else at that point, if our church ceases to exist. But while we're here, we do get a very nice benefit from that.
So just to be clear, that money is separate from the 2.7?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And we only get the benefit from that. We don't hold and manage any of that. Yes?
Where's the benefit show up? What account does it go into?
It basically winds up in unrestricted funds. We hold it in something actually called, the Leonard Trust account on our books. But you'll see it more under the unrestricted funds here, I believe. That would be more under the scholarships, Mike, with, column, I think.
Second question, so it's managed by, Tammy Sharp at Old North State Trust Company.
Correct.
Is any of it currently being spent by the trustee?
Well, again, it goes into this general accounting that you're seeing.
Right?
Yes, the earnings
So
from it is what we
is
get.
anything coming out of the principal?
No.
Okay, so the principal is sitting there,
Well,
throwing off.
let me give you a little more detailed answer. I don't want to become the IRS here, but they had, a couple of years ago, the IRS changed their policy on accounts like that. I think there were some cases where trusts were holding the funds and never dispersed to the beneficiary anything. So they've come up with a rule that around 5% each year has to flow out of that. So if you hit a year where we lost 15%, they still have to give us 5%, which is harmful to the account actually, but that's the law now. That's a little more detailed than you probably need to know much about today, but, yes, we, approximately 5% a year is what it's generating for us now.
And we'll discuss where that's going.
Well, it's,
It's in discretion.
yes, it's in the chart right beside of
So
it.
it all
Are we
goes
the-
to discretion. Very good, thank you.
Are we the only beneficiary of that fund, or is this a fund that goes to?
No, there are other, my understanding, and these are all Paula questions, as you know. My understanding is that if we go away, then there are other designees that would get money from that, but one good reason to stay here, folks. Really good questions, and I know this is something we don't look at very much at all. Anything else?
Little bitty question.
Sure.
It says interested dispersed, should that be interest? It's
Oh,
just.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And that's funds that will be going into the budget. That's one of those holding places, Kathy, that's
Yes.
a designated title for that, that'll wind up in the general fund.
Thank you.
Great questions. Ellen?
How do these, I'll plan a patriotic concert, I'm just kidding.
We can have a large one.
A large concert. How, this is spendable funds as of right now, so how did these numbers change throughout the year or annually or whatever? I don't do investments, so that's way over my head, but, I mean, the money that's here and spendable, that's not gonna decrease based on the market or whatever, or I just don't know how that changes from year to year.
It could if we had large swings, generally not that large that it would impact those, but all of these are totaled up and it's invested as one big lump sum. And then each sub-account has a percentage. That when the earnings come in, it's allocated based on that percentage of that fund. So it goes up with for that. I do think one opportunity we have, many of you know Paula Locke, that I mentioned, she used to work in the office here, and she also is our administrative assistant for the trustees, and she still is serving that function. She was in a good position when she knew of an opportunity within these funds that would help one of the boards of the church, or whatever, she could point that out. Well, she's not in the office anymore, so we need to probably find a better communication with consistory as to what some opportunities might be. If the office needs new computers and things like that, we can certainly help with that. And I think given just the switch over that we've had, we have an opportunity to probably share more of that information.
Well, I can tell you the computers in the office are dated 2015.
Oh, they're after 2000, that's okay. Probably.
Trying to use it.
So anyway, John.
Thank you for sharing all this information. I know a lot of people have expressed an interest in thank you for breaking it all down.
I think that it's important that we've gotten to the time where that's important. I'm not sure how Jerry feels on that, but he's here with us today, so I appreciate that. But I do think there's been a benefit, if you want to look at it that way, kind of keeping things off the radar. They have had a chance really to grow, or we have some more significant numbers now. So I'm not speaking philosophy, but I'm just saying that is a benefit, how things have worked out. But yeah, it's time for everybody to know everything. Yes, sir.
So I was just looking at this on page 11, so that total spendable funds comes out to million, total number of 3.7. So that means like the unspendable portion of that 3.7 is about 2.4 million. I did the rough math on that. So I guess two questions associated with that. Number one, there are various funds that are available for investments that have different levels of risk. And without getting into too much how the trustees manage that, but I hope part of this process is going to be alignment on level of risk and what funds are in a higher risk versus low risk because of this 2022 market fluctuation, of course, dramatically affected the amount of cash that has been thrown off by the trust.
Right.
So if we're gonna have that dependency every year, and it's getting bigger, as you mentioned earlier, being able to have that a little bit more stable, is pretty important. So,
And we have excellent professional management, from Stacy Dillon from Wells Fargo, worked with these accounts for a long time. I don't think Jerry can say enough nice things about Stacy giving us good guidance on that. But, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Joe, and I feel like we're getting that kind of guidance through Wells Fargo on that. How long has he worked on these accounts? It's a long time now, isn't it?
Stacy?
Yeah.
For years.
But he's very familiar with us and with Jerry, and I feel like we're getting some good advice from him.
Yeah, he does a lot for
Yeah.
church, community college, my personal, well educated.
Yeah.
Kind of like, he's a good old country boy, well, knowledgeable in his finance.
Yeah. Exactly.
And just as a follow-up, I understand the Leonard Fund and, the distribution and I guess dissolution, dissolving of the trust, should this church cease to exist. How do we have information available related to all the individual, trust agreements for all of this other funding? In other words, is there must be used to community organ only, or are there also clauses in that same legal document that might say, however, if the church needs a new roof and it's leaking on the organ, we can pay for the roof.
What I will tell you is, of the 30-something different funds, they all have their own agreement. They all read differently, so I'm not gonna try to draw any big conclusions from that. Jerry and Paula are the ones who probably know more of the detail about those specific agreements, but I know there are over 30 of those different agreements. But they all have their own issues.
And it might be good to share, maybe establish like a category 1, 2, 3, based on how strict that trust identifies the use of the proceeds from the trust versus, the way the wording is set up, there is some flexibility to reallocate. You don't have to use all of the patriotic music, fund for patriotic music type thing.
Yeah, and again, Paula is the one that's intensely familiar with all of those. She's been working with those for years. I don't know the ins and outs nearly as well as she would on that, but, yeah, patriotic music was pretty well locked in. So.
Unless the rest leaks.
We'll have a big 4th of July. Great questions, anyway.
They're legal documents.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
They're legal documents. Sometimes I believe there are heirs still alive that might can make some changes. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer to do that, but it's, sometimes it becomes difficult.
I think it'd be hard to vote them down.
Well, I think since we're in the process of doing several trusts right now with an attorney, the wording in that, it can be very flexible, or it can be very rigid, that's what we're finding. So I think it might be worth looking into having an attorney review those various trust documents and say, no, rigid or flexible, those kinds of things.
And I would encourage you, if it's something you feel led, one day to leave something to the church. First of all, you do have that opportunity, and we'd be glad to help show you how to do that. And then secondly, flexibility is a very important thing, because things do change over time. What seems like a great purpose right now might not be 10 years from now, might not be beneficial to the church.
Well, since you're talking about money and how essentially the market, affects it, something that I think we need to, approach the congregation with, since lots of us are seniors, and there probably are some in here doing this, instead of writing your, donations out of your checkbook weekly, there's a good way to do this if you are invested, and through, your IRAs, when you reach a certain age, you're required to have required distributions. And if you use those required distributions directly out, have your advisor to direct those to the church, it helps you tax-wise, at the end of the year. For instance, if you want to donate to the church, say you pledge $8,000 a year, and your required distributions are like $30,000 a year. If you have your advisor to go ahead and cut that check, and you can do it quarterly, biannually, or monthly, however you want to do, to the church, then at the end of the year, tax-wise, it benefits you to have it pulled out of that, because it's tax-free. So people need to know that there are ways that you can donate and not only help the church, but help yourself as well.
Let me ask, I'm getting a little off track here. Let me ask you a general question. Would there be an interest in us putting together a seminar on something like that? Would that be attended if we were to do something like that?
Yes.
Because there is a lot of information under that. Okay, or maybe something that we want to look at, and maybe we put Stacy to work another day here on that. All right. If there's nothing else, I'm going to step aside, but thank you for some great questions.
Thank you, Walter. So, first of all, I do think it's really great that the trustees have really just given everybody this kind of information. It's so important at this critical stage in the life of the church. And Walter, thank you for such a great overview. One thing to note, you've got a good trust that is well run, well managed, and is making money. And it's serving and its distributions are serving good purposes. So the next topic we're going to talk about is mission, and Smithy is going to talk to us a little bit about your mission profile.
missions. And for my part, it was kind of like a treasure hunt because I would ask about one thing and somebody would go, oh yeah, well, you know, we used to do this or we did this at one time. And since we're going back 10 years, it was kind of nice because I could say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. So I learned a lot about missions. I thought I knew, but I didn't quite know them all. I want to start with a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and we use this in our team as a guiding light, so to speak. The church is only the church when it exists for others, not dominating, but helping and serving. So I think we have many missions here at First Reformed, and we are serving. And I want to start with the question of who do we serve in our missions? Just think about those missions, and all of those missions go to a variety of different people that we serve. We serve the food insecure. I think it's not just the homeless anymore. It's not just the homeless that we serve food to. These are people with homes who are desperately trying to make it from one paycheck to another, from the month-to-month basis and stretch that dollars out. So they're not homeless, they're food insecure. That's the new politically correct way to say it, which I have something to say about politically correct. That's what my mama always used to say, being nice. Finding a way to say something that doesn't sound mean. So the food insecure, we serve at Saturday lunch, and we serve the open hands on Monday nights, and also teaming up with Grace Episcopal. So we have those. Also, we do serve the homeless among us with shelter meals. And if you go back a few years before COVID hit, there were those of us that volunteered to spend the night at the shelter to help with the staffing there. We also serve the elderly with Meals on Wheels. We not only provide the kitchen, but also several among our membership go out and deliver the meals to people. So that's also about providing a good lunch, but it's also about having a contact daily with people, many of whom live by themselves, and somebody sees and lays eyes on them every day, 5 days a week. It's a way of keeping up with them. So that's the food insecure, the homeless, the elderly, others in need. Our clothing closet is huge. I haven't been down there since the great waterfall and the subsequent cleanup, but having been down there in the past, I said, I think we got more clothes than they do in belts. And so the clothing closet, I'm sure many of us have heard stories from out of the clothing closet, to helping those in need. If you go back a little ways too, there were other missions that were done. I think the women at one time had carried meals for those working in Habitat for Humanity, and some of our members also work in Habitat for Humanity. Our LGBTQ plus friends, we participate in Lexington Pride and have since the beginning of Lexington Pride. And if you go back before Lexington decided to celebrate Pride, we went down to Salisbury and also participated there in support. We look toward healthcare needs for people. We have blood drives 2 to 3 times a year here whenever the Red Cross is in need. We have that set up to be able to do the blood drives here. and also children. So our community garden started first with our own member children participating a lot in the garden. And thanks to Edgar, that flipped that narrative, and now it's community children participating in the garden, teaming up with anything for our youth. And I think that's good to thinking on your feet and changing up things to still fit that. We've done Christmas bags and for children and back to school bags. We serve dinner for the Lexington High School football team once a year. I think that's the women that does that, but it's still from our church. And numerous activities at Charles England Elementary School, including the weekend backpack program where children carry on food to get them through the weekend, where they will have food to eat. And my favorites, the graduation year-end hot dog cookout at Charles England. The kids are so cute, and they're always coming through and getting what they like on their hot dogs, and very gracious kids. Thank you. It's nice to see the kids with manners. So I don't think our kids don't have manners. They do. And thinking about the children part of it, one of the things we often worry about within our church is we say we don't have children, and we don't have a lot of member children, but we still have children. We have the community children, and I want us to remember that. We have the kids that live in this community, go to school in this community. They're our children, so that's part of our mission work. And when I look at the mission work overall, one of the things that I think makes it so good and makes us able to be broad spectrum, so to speak, is collaboration within the community. And when we collaborate with other entities like Open Hands and Grace Episcopal, Journey Church comes and serves on Saturdays on a regular basis. Tyler Methodist has come and helped with our Saturday program, and also with the Clothes Closet. These kinds of collaborations spread that mission work out into the community even further. It helps us reach more people. The places that we collaborate, they also reach more people with missions. So I think that's one of our strong points in our mission work, is that we're diversified in our mission and who we serve, and we collaborate together. We help other embassies with their missions. I also want to say, with organizations like, I've mentioned this a couple, like P-Flag, that meets here once a month on Thursday, and NAMI that also meets here. Meals on Wheels cooks out of our kitchen every day. This building itself becomes a mission in that it's used by other people with things we may not be directly involved in, but the building becomes a mission in that we can provide a space for people to do their work and missions. And so the question this slide starts with, and I didn't go down the slide, but the booklet that you have has a little thing about each individual mission, which is just a treasure to read. And I hope you'll take the time to do that. But the question, who would miss First Reformed UCC if we were not here? Who would miss us? I think we just went through a whole lot of people who would miss us. This community would miss us. 700 plus meals would not be going out of this kitchen every month if we were not here. So I want us to think about that, and
37,000 hours, because we don't even have some of the hours listed because we couldn't collect them. It's too hard to calculate some of them. So, so basically, you can say you've got 37,000 hours over the past 11 years. That is very impressive. So congratulations. A couple of other points I wanted to make as we were going through this. Let's look at membership. I wanted to look at membership numbers, and I wanted to point out that, yeah, your rolls were cleaned in 2017, so that accounts for what, 80, something like that, I don't know now. 80 something change in membership. Then you had 15 new members join in 2017 and 2018. So I'm just curious, is there anybody here who's joined the church in the last 10 years? All right, wow. Okay, y'all, did you notice this? Okay, some volunteers, why? Why did you join? Open and affirming, okay, thank you. Open and affirming, anybody else? What other, yes, Smith? Open and affirming. Missions. 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 Open and affirming. Anybody else? Family. Family. Good reason to join a church. And you say what? Community oriented. You mean community as in community within the church or community like the whole city?
The whole city.
Cool. Okay, so that's kind of mission too. Right. Cool. Yes.
Because Brian McCurley reached out to us.
Oh, that's now who is Brian McCurley?
Wonderful, wonderful. What did you say? Brian McCurley reached out. Oh, he passed away.
3.
So personal connection. Personal, somebody makes the extra effort. Somebody makes the extra effort. Now, there's so many, what I want you to hear is these are people who are here, who've joined the church because of who you are and the qualities that you have as a church. Including, in many cases, literally who you are physically, face to face. There's someone who you meet personally, who connects with you personally. I have to say, by the way, that's one reason I believe in smaller churches. Because that's much more likely to happen in a smaller church than in a larger one. That kind of personal one-on-one connection. So what you're hearing here are the reasons why people value the church and who joined recently. Can I see those hands again? The recent members. Let me see. Good. So, and notice that they vary in the age, they're varying in age range, in generations. So that's a good sign too. And I'm going to talk about some of that here in a minute. I'm so sorry. Could you guys fix the allergy problem we're in? Yeah.
Sure.
Welcome to the club.
I know. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to the next stage.
Like herding cattle.